Welcome to Rainbow Vision Network, a radio show reaching beyond the limitations of our minds and beliefs into a world of inspiration and empowerment where the impossible is possible. To learn more about your host, Betsey, her new riveting books on Amazon, be sure to check out Betsey's scheduled events, her predictions, and her Earth News One blog at betseylewis.com. BetseylEwis. And now, your host, author, international psychic medium, Earth Keeper, and Earth Mysteries investigator, Betsey Lewis.
Hi, everyone, and welcome on this Monday, November 9th, 2015. I am so excited about the show tonight. But have you ever wondered what lies beyond death? Is there life after death? And is there proof of the soul's existence? Well, I think we're going to have plenty of proof tonight with Dr. Elisa Medhus, who joins us tonight. As a physician and a mother of 5, she lost her 20-year-old son, Erik, from suicide after it was about 6 years ago, after he committed suicide by taking a .45 caliber handgun and shooting himself in the head. At that time, Erik suffered from bipolar disease. Now, the extraordinary thing about Erik's death is he isn't dead. He's proved it time and time again that he's well and having a blast on the other side. Together, Erik and his mother have written 2 books on Erik's channeled work with the help of medium Jamie Butler, My Son and the Afterlife, Conversations from the Other Side, and her newest book, which we're talking about tonight, My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven. In addition to these books, Dr. Medhus is also the author of 3 award-winning parenting books, Raising Children Who Think for Themselves, Hearing is Believing, and Raising Everyday Heroes. So be sure and visit her website, and that is channelingeric.com. So let me get her on here. Welcome to the show. Elisa,
hey,
are
Betsey.
you there?
I am here, ready to rock and roll.
Oh, great. Well, great. The books are just fabulous, and I read them both, and I want to thank you and Erik for your incredible work, and, you know, it's helping so many people. I know with your website, Channeling Erik, you just bring so many people, you know, into the realization that, you know, the afterlife really does exist. And, you know, if there's skeptics out there, I don't know after they read these books, because certainly he's such a strong personality. But tell us how it all started. You were really a left-brain logical physician, and you were skeptical about the soul's survival. So how did this all come about after his death?
Well, after he died, of course, it was like an atom bomb blew up in our house, Betsey. You can imagine. I mean, this is the worst thing that can happen to a human being, is to lose a child, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And it was really difficult for me because I'm a doctor, and, you know, my whole educational background is science. And science taught me that, you know, to exist, it had to be perceived with one or more of the senses or measured by an instrument. I couldn't do that after Erik died. Plus, make it worse, I was raised by atheists. So, and we're talking about militant atheists, okay? So I didn't really have a belief system about life after death. So I guess I just didn't know how to answer the question, is Erik still around? And it took me 4 years, even despite so much evidence, to really, really believe 100% that there is life after death and he does exist.
So you began having some really paranormal events, some strange things happening. So tell us about that. I think he's going to prank us tonight. I feel it. So tell us all the things that have happened.
He almost always does. Well, I think the first was really not directed at me. It was toward my father, the atheist. Okay, the atheist that laughed at people in front of their face if they even talked about God or an afterlife. He called me 3 days after Erik died and sounded panicky. He said, Elisa, I was sitting in my chair reading the paper. I look up and there's Erik there. And then he turns into his little boy self and crawls onto my lap. I don't know what to believe. I'm so startled. So an atheist relaying this? I mean, this is the guy whose first words to me after Erik died was, I'm sorry, Elisa, but Erik's going to turn to dust. Not I'm sorry, or it was that. So this really shook him to the core, and therefore it shook me to the core. That's why, that's when I started to say, I'm going to research this. I'm going to find the science behind this. So I read all sorts of books about the quantum physics behind consciousness and consciousness survival, papers on alternate dimensions, all sorts of accounts of near-death experiences and the studies that go along with them, controlled studies on mediums. I did it all. For 3 months, I did nothing but read and cry and cry.
Oh, I can imagine. And when did you decide to start reaching out to mediums? Because, a lot of people think that they're fakes and everything. So what made you do that? That was kind of a big step, wasn't it?
Oh, gosh, it was, Betsey, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, including yours, but if somebody started talking to me about a medium or psychic or whatever, it would conjure up this image of a gypsy hunched over a crystal ball. That's what kind of skeptic I was. And I'm very embarrassed to say that right now. But I read in my research that, a lot of parents do, out of desperation, seek the help of a medium. So I thought, well, I don't have anything else to read. Anything else is the kind of book I wouldn't be able to understand. So I got to do something. And so I did call a medium and have a session, my first session, and it was just blew me away.
Isn't that something? And
yeah.
Wow. But tell us some of the other things that have happened to some of the other events, like the stinky stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And phone call. Wasn't there a phone call he made too?
Oh, there was so much stuff. I mean, we'd have water faucets turn all the way on, right when we're watching. Deadbolts turn, airsoft BBs all of a sudden appear at the ceiling, hovering above us, and then dropping to the floor. We'd have unplugged appliances start to work. For example, every time my husband came home from work for 3 days in a row, the Viking downdraft vent, that vent that sucks all the smoke out of my burning cooking, would go up and down like it was waving hello to my husband when he came home from work.
Oh, no.
So that doesn't sound like, anybody could say, well, that's a mechanical or electrical glitch, who cares?
Right.
But we were remodeling at the time, so there was no power to the kitchen at all. It was absolutely gutted except for a couple of appliances. So anyway, the Viking mechanic just couldn't figure it out. I don't think it'll ever be the same. I really don't. But then I did have a phone call. That was during the election season, and we were getting slammed by robocalls, which I found very irritating. And I was trying so hard to work on my laptop, on my blog, channeling Erik. And I have ADD, so I have the attention span of a gnat embryo. So to hear this ringing and ringing was very, very distracting. And so I was getting angry. It kept ringing. The phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. Come on, answering machine, pick up. Finally it did, and there was Erik's voice saying, Mom, it's me, Erik. It's me. So I flew to that phone, and it was unfortunately too late. But I noticed that the number was like some weird 12-digit number, and I tried to call, but it was not a functioning one. Plus, it did not leave a message on the answering machine. It was like the answering machine said message count 0, and it should have picked it up. So, but still, Betsey, I don't know what it is, but every time I had what seemed like undeniable evidence, the skeptic in me would rear its ugly head. And, all these doubts would creep in,
Sure.
I kind of didn't want to believe, I know that sounds weird, but I kind of didn't want to believe, because what if I did, Betsey, and then I found out it was all just a bunch of nonsense?
Sure.
That'd be losing Erik all over again. So this is not the wishful thinking of a grieving mother. I fought tooth and nail the entire way.
Wow. I've had a lot of things happen, and my sister has been coming back for several years, and she likes to prank us around here. And, at first my husband and I were trying to say, well, maybe it's, this electrical problem here, or and, there's just been so many things. You try and rationalize everything, and then when it really continues to happen, it's not a coincidence. It's not by accident. There's something behind that, and you know right away. And I feel her presence all the time, and I know you probably feel Erik's presence all the time.
Absolutely, but I think the two things that really solidified it for me and put me at 100% certainty. One was shortly after Erik's death. I was walking down the hall upstairs to his room, and I swear to God, Betsey, I don't know why I even wanted to go back to that room, but I did. I guess I wanted a closure. And my second eldest daughter was following me, and she had a very special connection with Erik. Suddenly she felt his presence, and fortuitously there was a digital camera in the room, next to the hallway. So she picked it up, started snapping pictures. We looked at those pictures, and we noticed one of them was this very bright orb, glowing orb with a long comet's tail, which, of course, implied movement. So at the time, I didn't think much about it, but later on, I had it analyzed by two photography experts, and they did something called brought the gamma down. I have no idea what that means, but by bringing the gamma rays or whatever down, sorry, I don't know anything about this, they were able to conclude that this orb was its own light source, and you can even see it casting light on nearby structures. The second, so I had a permanent recording of that, right? It wasn't like that phone call where I didn't have anything recorded, and I could think, well, I was just daydreaming or something, just hallucinating.
Right.
But then, about 4 years after he died, I received this email from a blog member who said that in one of the channeling sessions that I had on a regular basis with Jamie Butler, a medium, she heard, and it's recorded, and I put them on YouTube. She heard 3 voices.
Wow.
And I kindly told her, look, I can't be, because it was just Jamie and me. That's it. Nobody else was there. But of course I listened to it, and yep, there were 3 voices. One of them was definitely Erik's. I mean, a mother knows the sound of their own kid's voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I had it analyzed by a sound engineer who concluded that these were not human voices, because for many reasons, obviously, but one of the main reasons was they left no voice signature. So that did it for me.
Wow.
Now I'm 100% certain never to go back again.
Really? You're totally convinced now.
Oh, yes, ma'am, I am. And it's just so comforting.
And still, I know you must, you must long for his physical, presence.
Oh,
I know
gosh,
I do with my family, but but still to know that he's there, he's watching over you, and like you said, the orb. A lot of people capture orbs and they wonder what they are, and I've always thought they were spirits. And is that the true form that they actually look like? I mean, they can make themselves look like they did, when they were in their physical body, right? But mostly on the other side. Mm-hmm. Right.
They can actually even manifest their, thought creates reality. That's a physics thing. They can actually even create a physical body for themselves there. My father, who passed away, apparently has done that. He wants to go around with a flesh and bones body. Mm-hmm. But their natural state is a beam or a ball of light. And yes, you're right. I guess after transcribing his memoir, I don't really grieve over him anymore, because in it he just gives so much detail about his death, and it didn't hurt, which is God, every mother wants to hear that, and everything about heaven, his in such great detail, so many descriptions, as you know, And then everything about his life as a spirit. What's it like to be a spirit in the afterlife? What's it like to cross over? What is there? Are there animals? Are there buildings? So it's like the mystery is all but gone, and so I kind of just feel this missing. I miss him like I would, and I told you this before, like a kid's gone off to some study abroad program, and I know they're going to come back. So I do miss the hugs. I miss the kisses. I miss fussing at him to come do his chores. I miss all that stuff. But it's not the same as the deep grief that used to keep me in bed almost all the time.
Oh, sure. You know what I felt when I was reading the book, and maybe you've had this kind of confirmed, but, Erik died at 20 years old, right? And, he took his own life. But I have a feeling that if he wouldn't have lived much longer, he would have died in some other way, that his mission was actually to help people on the other side. And, that's, I think we all have a mission in life, and that's what Erik's mission was all about. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're spot on. Apparently, you're right. We do design our incarnations. We might get together with another spirit, for example, and say, "Hey, look, dude, I want to learn a lot about forgiveness. Can you come down and play a role with me such that you betray me?" So, but Erik's mission was to come down and be plagued by bipolar disease, by severe learning disabilities, by Tourette's, and be bullied mercilessly, and then take his life, exit early, and help people as with the role he's doing now, which is a spirit guide. In that suffering, he gained so much compassion and just wonderful listening skills and other tools that would make him a more effective spirit guide. And by the way, Erik says that a spirit guide over there, the real common, is like taxi cabs in New York City. So I think that's kind of funny.
Well, he does have a great sense of humor. You've got to admit, with the F-bombs and everything, he's just got a great sense of humor.
He did not get that from me. I want you to know that.
Okay.
Not all of it, anyway. But Erik talks about his cursing. It's really interesting. He's been asked, why do you have this potty mouth? And he says he doesn't want to be one of those gurus that starts out with, "Welcome, my dear one." He wants to be approachable. He wants to have this humanness so that humans can relate and to him. And he also says that words are just a string of letters. They get their intent, their power, rather, from the intent behind them. And his is just benevolent and pure and loving.
I think there was someone that asked, well, how can he use those kind of words over in heaven? Like we're the same as we were when we died, on the other side. There's nothing that's different, that we don't suddenly change and become these saints, right? If we weren't that way in physical life.
Right. We may lose the emotional baggage, but you're right. We just shed our body like a suit of clothes and go to this alternate dimension, this parallel dimension that's right on top of us. I mean, heaven, home, he likes to call it, is basically a dimension that is stacked on top of our dimension. That's right.
I wanted you to talk a little bit about bipolar disorder, and I know it affects like 5.7 million adults, American adults. And was he on any medication? I was kind of curious because I thought maybe, that's what I thought.
We tried everything, including natural things like omega-3,
really?
And large doses. He went to a therapist every week. He went to a psychiatrist every week. He was showered with love. But, unfortunately, Betsey, as you know, bipolar disease is often a terminal one. And, in his case it was.
And that brings up the thought of suicide. A lot of these medications have horrible side effects that make you even more depressed than what you are. It says, feelings of suicide and everything else. And do you think that actually contributed to his his thoughts of suicide and actually, following through with it?
I really don't. Actually, he was pretty stable on his medicines.
Really?
But the day he killed himself, I looked back, and my husband and I were just talking before that he seemed to be okay, seemed to be happy, stable. He had friends he was going out with on a regular basis, but he just made an impulsive decision and ended it all. So I don't think it was the medicine. I think it was just impulse.
That's interesting. Now, I know that Erik discusses suicide in there, and I think there are different types of suicide. If you're in pain, you have a terminal illness. Now, is that something that we're not judged on? I know we judge ourselves, but it's not right when it's a selfish type of thing that we take our lives, and we're running from something. We want to escape our problems. That type of suicide.
Yeah. Well, Erik says that there are a couple of, probably more than a couple of types of suicide. One is to punish people, like as he says, the FU suicide. Mm-hmm. And then there are people like Erik who suffer. Most people, it's not their contract, it's not their spiritual contract to take their lives, to exit early. So if somebody does commit suicide when it's not part of their spiritual plan, they're going to be in for a rude awakening, because they will discover that they take their problems with them. And not only that, they create a world of problems in their wake, because of all the grief and devastation they leave behind. And they have to feel it. They feel our emotions. They hear our every thought. So they feel our hearts breaking. They see our tears. They have to suffer through it like we are, and know that they're responsible. Plus, they also understand what kind of spiritual contracts they've broken. For example, maybe somebody took their life and crossed over and found out that they were supposed to give to father a child that was going to cure diabetes or something. Then they're going to know that's not going to happen, and many people are going to suffer and die because of that decision. So that's very, very difficult to deal with, and it's very difficult from their dimension to correct these problems. It's much easier to deal with these on the earthly plane.
Right. I think about the movie Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, and he's gone back into the past where he's trying to get his parents together, and he's got a photograph, and they start, fading out, because they're not together yet. So that's kind of what you're talking about, that they're, if certain people take their lives when they're not supposed to, drastic things will happen.
That's right, like It's a Wonderful Life. My favorite, one of my favorite movies. It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that too. So that's just incredible. I want you to describe what Erik went through, because everybody thinks that they go through a tunnel of light after they pass on, and he went through actually blackness, right? Total darkness, right? Talk about that. And then he went into the light. So,
well, yeah, that's also a very good question. Well, when he pulled that trigger, he remembers blackness and hearing the ricochet sound, and then he saw his body. He was standing next to his body. His body looked like a wax figure. It didn't look like him. He said even his fingers seemed too long. It just looked odd, and he didn't have an emotional connection. He did try to get back in because he was really afraid of how we would react, but of course that didn't work. And he also tried to touch himself. He tried to put his hand on his face, and his hand slipped right through. He didn't have that what he calls the stop mechanism anymore. He tried to grab the gun, but his hand went right through. And he also realized that he could see from a 360-degree perspective, which is new for him. He also noticed that his thoughts had such power that he could think about being in the next room, and boom, there he was in the next room. And so anyway, then he that was the worst. And you read the chapter on his death. I can't tell you how difficult it was for me to transcribe that. It was just, it's so graphic. There's so many details, and it's details that I, as a mother, should not know. And there were many times in transcribing that section that I almost decided I'm not going to do this. No, I can't do it. But after a point, it becomes this joyous adventure. So then, after his death, he goes to each of us and says these very poignant, heart-warming, heart-wrenching goodbyes. He goes to his funeral and notices a lot of interesting things there. For example, that he could process everybody's thoughts at once, but very clearly. And then, as we were going home, he wanted to follow us, but instead he felt this pull, and he felt the sensation of movement, but there were no visual cues like scenery passing by. There was no sense of wind blowing in his face, and he felt like he was being tugged in by some cosmic fishing pole, I think he said. I can't remember exactly. And then he felt that sense in his chest, in the pit of his stomach, that you get when you're just dropping over the peak of a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And he entered this whiteness, this big white room. So that's what his crossing over was like. But you're right, some people do enter blackness. Everybody's crossing over, he learned, is based on their beliefs about it when they're alive. So an atheist might just believe there's nothing, right? So they will die and enter this blackness, and they'll stay there until they start doing things like thinking, like, I wonder how my dog is. And wait a minute, I had a thought. What's that all about? I can't be dead. And they'll start thinking more and more until they start to ask for help. When they ask for help, they get it, and they're removed from the blackness. Some people believe in the white tunnel. They get that. Some people believe they have to battle demons before they get to heaven, and they will create that reality for themselves, too. So there's probably just as many ways of crossing over as there are people who are dying, who die.
So we're pure energy when we cross over. We are pure thought, and we can create our reality instantly. You know, our hell, our heaven, the people we want around us. We can go to wherever we want in the world, into the solar system, and explore out there. It sounds like Erik's been on quite the adventures out there.
That's true. He likes to go to other dimensions, and according to him, there are an infinite number of dimensions that you can go to. And so he does. He does like to explore different planets, different galaxies, different universes. There are an infinite number of universes, too. And so that's one of his little hobbies.
I love that. You know what my pet peeve is? We get on the other side and we learn so much about everything. You know, we've got our spirit guides, and we can look in the records and see who we've been in past lives and everything. And then when we get over here, we're reborn again. We forget everything, and we've got to relearn everything again.
I know, but that's the key. It's relearning. It's remembering, and that coming in with this newness makes it such an adventure. You know, it's like you don't want to go into a test having read all the cliff notes. It's just not the same. You learn more when there is this newness to things. And we do come here to basically learn all about the experience, all aspects, facets of love, because we are love. We are whole and part of God's source, all that is, and that is love. It's interesting. Love, like everything, including thoughts and emotions, like you said, Betsey, is a form of energy. It's a sentient, self-aware energy, and Einstein even tried to define it with a mathematical equation right before he died, but he didn't get a chance to. So that's what we're here to do: relearn all the aspects of love, not from a conceptual point, perspective like they do on their side, but from an experiential component. It's like you don't want to just take organic chemistry class; you want to take the lab too. Or actually, I probably wouldn't want to do that. I probably wouldn't want to do either.
But Elisa, I don't want to start all over again and learn all this again. I just want to know. And, I think a lot of children do, right? The new children coming in, they remember a lot of new things.
Right, and Jesus, and I think probably Buddha and others like him, also came without that spiritual amnesia, and they did that for a reason, to teach us certain things. So, but it's funny. He says that he'll hear a lot of us saying, "This is the last time I'm coming here," but then those people will get home and they will just want that ticket back fast, because it's just that human experience on the earthly plane is apparently really special. A lot of planes, a lot of dimensions don't have any contrast. It's just all just love and whatever, and there's no anticipation, there's no surprise, and this is what makes Earth so special.
Well, don't we earn our more gold stars if we're here in the physical plane of Earth? We evolve faster. I mean, if we do right in our physical life, and we become very spiritual and everything. Isn't that what it's all about, evolving?
Yeah, but, Erik says there is no better and worse and more evolved and less evolved. There's just a degree of awareness. The more that you open your awareness to, it's all about that. For example, Erik might want to go to some other dimension, but if he's never heard of Dimension X, then he won't be able to learn about it and travel. So he might have to hear about it from another spirit or what have you. And so it's about being aware of what's out there, being aware of the information. You already know it. It's all there. It's just re-tapping into it and becoming aware of it again. So, but no, there's no superior, inferior. There are no levels of evolution. It's just a different degree of awareness, he says.
Wow. Let's talk about time. I know he talks about linear time, and he gets into some quantum physics, which is pretty heavy duty. I mean, the wave structure of matter theory, I mean, good grief.
Oh, gosh, I don't even remember what he said about that, but this subject always just sort of spins my mind a little bit. It makes me feel so stupid, but that's okay. There is... linear time is a human construct, and Einstein supported that theory too. You kind of need it for the human experience because you do have to have a cause and then an effect. That implies linearity. You do have to have sequential language. You do have to have, I need to get up, I need to have breakfast, I need to go to work. You need to have that sort of linear structure. But in reality, there is no time. Everything is happening at once. So you are living as a monk in the 1600s at the same time you're living your life now, at the same time you're living in the year 2047 as a scientist in some space lab.
Now, isn't that mind-boggling? It really is when you think about it. And I've read about it in the Seth material, in Jane Roberts' Seth material during the 70s, that we are multidimensional personalities, and there's extensions of ourselves out there. And I know Erik gets into this too, where you could be a male living on the earth somewhere as a monk, like you said, and somewhere else you have, and that's so mind-boggling because we feel that maybe, I kind of feel like maybe, what is the source? Who is the source? And, if we do have all these multidimensional personalities or extensions of ourselves, can we date ourselves?
Well, actually, yeah, you can if
really?
But yeah, you could be a rancher in Montana and a doctor in Houston, Texas at the same time. So you can have, multiple selves even in one one time period, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's certainly possible. Now, I always had trouble trying to figure out how Erik dovetailed his timelessness there to our linear structure here whenever he intervenes in or visits our dimension, and it's very complicated. But he says that we're like turtles to him. I mean, we can start walking toward the refrigerator and make a couple of steps, and he can just go prank blog members, which he does a lot, all over the world, and come see me, and so on and so forth, and then come back, and we've taken 2 steps. So we're like turtles. It's just it took a little while for him to get used to that.
Now, on the other side, he is actually vibrating at a higher frequency than we are, right? We're lower, he's higher, and he has to lower his vibration to make things happen and move things, like, if he's going to move an insect or, levitate something.
Exactly. And this is why many people who grieve are the deepest, are the last ones to get some sort of communication from their loved one, because, well, like I said, everything is energy, right? Emotions, thoughts, us. I mean, Einstein referred to matter as frozen light, and every type of unique energy vibrates at its own very unique frequency on this long spectrum of energy called the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, you have the ultraviolet waves, you have microwaves, you have X-rays, you have all sorts, infrared, everything is on there. We occupy, and our whole world occupies that tiny, tiny sliver called the visible range. Now, when you're depressed, the frequency of your energy vibrates at a much lower frequency, so it's all the way down to the bottom of the visible range. So that's why we use things like I'm feeling low, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling depressed. So a spirit, well, they vibrate, like you said, at a much higher frequency, much, well outside and above the visible range. That's why we can't see them. They're outside of the visible range. That's like most of us can't see them. And they have to work really hard to lower the vibration of their energy to get all the way down to the bottom where us grievers are,
Isn't that something? I hear, and you probably hear this all the time, people asking why their departed loved ones don't contact them in some way, and I'm sure they try to, but maybe we just, they ignore the signs, but perhaps they haven't attended Erik's School for Departed Dummies or something.
Maybe not. Erik does try to teach a lot of spirits how to communicate. Cool. Some are better at it than others, so that's one of his other little extra side jobs, I guess. Maybe he moonlights. But yeah, some are better at others. But expectation, that is a very dense energy. Again, everything's energy. If we expect it, like, okay, come on, if you're really real, I want you to move this Coke can across the table, that energy is so dense, it's very difficult for them to punch through that. It really is.
Wow. And Erik is helping so many people right now. He's helping them on the other side. He's helping them on this side, and people that are feeling depressed. And just by your incredible blog site, the people that respond to it. I mean, you've probably had hundreds of people, maybe at least 1,000 people, going there and checking it out and
like 40,000 people are members.
Really?
It is
Holy
amazing.
Cow.
I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I have spoken to that say they have been saved either figuratively or sometimes literally from the blog. And it's just so surreal to me. It's almost like overwhelming to me that this this is all happening. I mean, for example, one guy said, made a comment after a post. He said, I was planning on killing myself today, but after reading this post, I want to live. And another person, a mother like me, lost her son the same way, and she had been going to a therapist for several months, wasn't working for some reason. So she came home from a session determined to take her life. She set everything up, and I can't remember how she was going to do it. But for some reason, before she pulled the trigger, put her head through the noose or whatever, swallowed the pills, she had this really strong urge to go to her computer and type in, "My son is dead." And all of a sudden, there's channeling Erik, the blog. So she reads it from stem to stern and makes the decision not to kill herself. But this book, if you've read the Amazon comments, it's all 5-star ratings. And people say, I'm not afraid to die anymore. I'm not afraid of dying.
Don't we have such a morbid sense of death? Like in Mexico, they celebrate the Day of the Dead, and the Native Americans, they talk to their ancestors on the other side, and we have, like, we think, they're gone. Once they're buried,
it's
they're
dead
gone.
and buried. It's the West, has a very warped sense of death, and we need to understand that it's not the end. It's a transition into an alternate dimension. Aren't there some cultures, I think it's maybe Thailand, I'm not sure, that they even celebrate with strippers during the funeral,
they do?
I think. Yeah.
Well,
so
that's a great way to do it.
I guess so. But yeah, we're different in the West. We really are. We don't celebrate life or death or going home like many cultures do.
Do you think, Elisa, that someday there will be some way that we can just maybe pick up some device and call the other side? I know, I think it was, who was it, Ben Franklin that was working on something, or maybe it was Edison's. One of the two were working on something to connect to the other side, but I've always felt that, EVP, recordings, tape recordings, people pick up things, and you said that Erik's voice has been picked up. So do you think that'll happen someday?
I really, really do. I think you're right. I think it was Edison. There is a guy in Italy, apparently, according to Erik, that works with EVPs a lot. But I think it's a matter of knowing the exact frequency to tune into to get it clearly, and it's probably a very, very narrow frequency. And I think we'll have that eventually, where we have spirit phones, and we all install one in our house, and hey, Grandpa Jones, how's it going? What you doing over there? There'll be a day where we do that.
Can you imagine that? What a day that'll be.
Oh, gosh. And, one thing I have learned, Betsey, from all of this is that just because we lose somebody, well, we don't lose them, just because somebody we love dies does not mean they're gone. That does not mean that we stop having a relationship with them. And I've learned that I can continue to have a relationship with Erik, and I do. And I'm telling you, Betsey, in so many ways, it's just more fulfilling. It's real, this relationship I have with Erik. It's different, but it's real.
Wow, I think that's just so amazing, and it's opening up minds out there, which people need to awaken to what's our world is not what we think it is. There's so many dimensions. There's so many levels of existence out there in life. We can't even imagine. It's infinity.
You're right. It's absolutely infinite. But Erik is not some special. Well, he's special to me. I'm his mom. But his is not a special case. It just happens to be the perfect trifecta of me, a willing mother who wants to try to slog away at her laptop with her chicken drumstick fingers trying to transcribe these sessions that I have with the medium, and the medium, and him. So we have that triad, and there are so many, well, gosh, probably just maybe infinite number of spirits who want to communicate in the same way, but they're either ignored or they don't have a relative or a friend that hooks up with a medium to try to channel them, or they don't learn to channel on their own, which you can do. So he's still just a boy without a body that's a spirit guide, and and I hate to say it's a dime a dozen, but in a sense it is. So if we had more spirits out there, more triads, medium, spirit, and human communicating, we would get this information out there a lot stronger and a lot sooner.
I think so too. With Jamie, do you think that the messages that Erik sends her or gives her get too filtered going through her, that she's adding her own beliefs to the channeled information?
Well, she's a little different. She's not one of those mediums who will say, well, she's showing me the color purple. Does that have any significance? She has been trained by somebody to repeat every single word right away. Like if Erik says my bike wheels need to be respoked, it's like my bike wheel need to, and she's learned to make it very fluid. So she doesn't really have time to think. Now, she's human. All humans have filters. But she is amazingly free as far as, and clear as a channel. And if she's not, Erik will say to her, will fuss at her and say, Jamie, don't weed me. Don't weed me. So he helps her clear her channels, and eliminate her filters.
They kind of have a brother-sister relationship, don't they?
Yeah, it's like the annoying little brother and the annoyed big sister. And Jamie is this fresh-faced Midwest kind of girl who is a little innocent. And so when she first spoke to Erik, having to repeat his sailor talk was not comfortable for her, and she still cringes. She really does. It's not easy for her. Yeah. I just feel sorry for whoever created the audiobooks. I just found out today that the audiobook is out for My Life After Death, and I just can't believe they had to say some of the stuff they had to say. My apologies to whoever it is.
Oh, wow. What does Erik say about animal spirits? Because I know they exist and they have souls, but what does he say about them? And how about insects, too?
Ooh, those are good questions. Well, all life forces go to heaven after they cross over, and they are treated equally. Human life force is not superior to the life force of of bamboo or of an insect. And they communicate through this universal language, telepathic. So when you cross over, you can sit there and Erik did this, have a full-on conversation with your dog without really speaking English or whatever. It's just like, it's more like an emotional language, because Erik says we're not human beings, we're really emotional beings. We are made of emotions. So I thought that was interesting. One pastime that a lot of spirits like to do, including Erik, is to go to the portal where insects come through after they die. And just, he says, think of the mosquitoes, how many millions. And so they fly through this portal, a different place than where humans, come through when they die. And they're like little sparklers, It's just like a beautiful fireworks show, he says. And everybody is around this portal, so many spirits just welcoming these little light beings back home. So in essence, the other side, the afterlife, is really a parallel world to our world, except the colors and everything are more vivid. Everything is just more alive on that side. I hate to say, but it's true. It's more alive than it is here. Yes, there are drawbacks, of course. But, the colors there, he says, there are so many colors that we could never possibly see as humans. They're vivid, high definition. They make sounds. The trees, for example, the bark is alive and moving. Just everything is just so alive, and there's so many beautiful sounds to everything. And when you perceive a tree there, for example, you can not only see it, you can hear it, you can feel its emotions, you can feel a connection to it. So it's very different. On the other hand, the two drawbacks are, well, at least two of the drawbacks, is that you don't have that same sense of touch. You can't hug the same. It's like when they hold hands there, it's like two jello hands flopping together. It's not the same. And you don't have that anticipation. You don't have that thrill of, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next, you know? Mm-hmm. So he misses that. So nobody can, make a surprise birthday party for anybody over there. It's not going to work out.
He talks about that he has kind of the things that he liked to do on the other side. He's created all that with his mind, his thoughts, right? He does that. I even read that he has sex on the other side. It may not be like physical sex here, but
it's different, he says. Mm-hmm. It's like involves the entire energetic body. And it lasts a long time. And the main thing is you're completely vulnerable. You're totally aware of each other's thoughts and emotions. There are no secrets there amongst spirits. You meet somebody, another spirit there, they know everything about you and you them. And it's kind of powerful. He really touts the state of vulnerability. We as humans think of it as a weakness, but it's not. If you are emotionally open and vulnerable, it's a very powerful state of being that we as humans should try to achieve. It's this open honesty,
Wouldn't that be something? Our world would be so different if we were all telepathic. Nobody could lie anymore.
I know. We'll probably try, but no, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, if we were all just totally emotionally honest, not only with each other, but ourselves.
Yes.
Can you imagine that level of vulnerability? It would be wonderful.
Oh, it would. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I'd love that. Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd have to watch our thoughts, wouldn't we?
Oh gosh, I don't know. If we were a civilization that did not judge, I think it would be all right. But unfortunately, we revel in judgment. There is no judgment. You judge yourself, perhaps, and Erik did after he crossed over for a long time. But you are not judged there. There's no higher being that says, "Oh man, you messed up." No, there's nothing like that.
Now, there's spirit guides, right? And what's the difference between angels and spirit guides?
Now, spirit guides, they can influence. They can nudge. For example, Erik will do all sorts of things like a person's cell phone will all of a sudden start playing a Channeling Erik YouTube video and they've never heard of Channeling Erik. Or he'll get on their computer and see his face, and they don't know who it is. They've never seen him before, or go to the website. So he can do things like that, and he likes to use electronics to do that. He'll text people, messages, all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, angels, they can heal energetically, and Erik can actually do that too, and they can intervene a guardian angel can save you from having a crash or whatever, intervene in some way. Archangels work on and he talks about all this in his book, but archangels operate on a grander scale, like a global scale, like whether to create or prevent wars, change weather patterns, etc.
Wow. Just amazing.
It is. I'm learning so much.
Oh.
I got a long way to go, but it's just such an adventure, Betsey. It really is.
It is.
And you've been on this
Erik.
adventure much longer. You've been on this adventure a lot longer than I have, haven't you?
Yeah, for a long time I have. Since I was very young, I had spirit guides that were talking to me and all kinds of things happening. So yeah,
Isn't that
it's
something?
been a part
How
of my life.
How blessed you are.
Oh, well, I was afraid of it for a while, having that, I would see things that would happen, that really scared me, like, people being killed or dying, and that really bothered me. I wanted to block it. No more, So I went through that for a while.
So there's a burden and a blessing, I guess, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Eriks. He made I think that was in the first book about Earth changes. He said we're all working to shift the collective consciousness towards spiritual enlightenment so that the Earth doesn't have to go through such a dramatic and traumatic change. Has he said anything else? I know he probably sees into the future, and maybe, the future is probably malleable and changeable, but does he talk about the future?
Yeah, he does. He talks about how our DNA will change to light-based, I think, if I remember correctly. You're asking me to go way back there, and my memory is just terrible, especially with my PTSD after seeing Erik. My memory is very poor. But he talks about how our digestive system will be different, how we will be able to subsist on pure energy. He says that, Mother Earth has enormous capacity to heal, and she will be fine. We, on the other hand, if we continue the path we're going on, will not. But he says there's nothing apocalyptic that's going to happen in the near future, not in our lifetime. There will be crazy weather patterns and these shootings, all that, those kind of things that are based on things like the magnetic shifts and the poles and so on and so forth. But there's nothing. There's not going to be an apocalypse, which is nice to know.
It is. Yeah, I know so many people, come out and say it's going to be the end of the world, this is happening, and, I've never felt that there's not going to be an end of the earth. There's going to be a lot of things happening, like you said, and a lot of earth changes, which we're already seeing, volcanoes and earthquakes and just a lot of strange things going on, but no, it's not going to be the end of the world. And thank goodness,
he talks about how we will... he talks about how we will colonize other planets by going through wormholes, but that's hundreds and hundreds of years away, and that we will start just by basically having space station satellites, colonies, instead of actually colonizing planets.
You mean the aliens are actually going to let us out there?
Yes. We are apparently under a protection contract right now, where we are, being protected against the bad guys, whoever they are, and allowed to evolve, to a certain degree before it's like, okay, all bets are off. That there are aliens among us, he said. The government knows about aliens. The UFOs are real. He talks a lot about all these mysteries, the great mysteries of the earth, and the UFOs and the morpholites and Bigfoot and all these kind of things. Not in the book, but in the blog. It's really fascinating.
That sounds like another book. Elisa, is it?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I have the energy to do that, Betsey, please.
Yes,
but
you
I
do.
kind of would like to channel a book from Erik for children about death and the afterlife. But
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But, that would be
gotta get some
just
energy
amazing.
First.
Before I let you go, I was wondering if you could talk about God and the universe just a little bit, because I know God, is just, people want to know what God is, and God, Erik has met God, right, or felt God.
Yes.
I don't know how to best describe it. I'll let you do that.
Sure. Well, when Erik first crossed over, the euphoria, gosh, the unconditional love was just amazing, and he wasn't used to that. He was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, when is it going to end? When am I going to be miserable again? But that did not happen. But there was one thing that was not right in his life, and that was us. He was constantly aware of our thoughts. He, felt our hearts breaking. He just felt the devastation. He was totally aware of all that. And he called upon God for help, and God appeared. And God can appear as anything you want him to. It's the same thought creates reality thing. If you want him to come as a telephone, he'll come as a telephone. It is genderless. It's not a male or a female, and it is all that is. There is nothing except for God, and we are part and whole of God. I call it Source, and Source is basically this infinite, sentient, self-aware energy mass that knows no bounds, and it is love, that energy called love. So we are kind of like a hologram of that. You know, you remember those necklaces back in, I don't know, it was the 70s, had a leather necklace, and it had this glass, flat glass piece that had a hologram of like a skull on it?
Oh, my gosh.
Remember those?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going back, isn't it, Betsey? That's going way back.
Oh, we're dating ourselves, aren't we?
Oh, gosh. Oh, no, I heard that from my mother. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
No, but you know, if you have a picture of yourself, Betsey, on that necklace, that's the whole. That's Source. That's you. You are all of God. You're a whole of God. Now, if you were to smash that into the ground and pick up each shard, you would see that same whole image of yourself. So we're a hologram of God, whole and part.
How beautiful. How beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love it. Boy, there's just so much. You know, I'm going to have to get you back, and, you know, maybe we could get you back and we can have people call in with questions. Would you mind that?
That'd be awesome. You know, it would be really cool, and this would be where you catch Erik's voice. Have the medium come on and interview him. Interview the dead dude on your show. That would be cool.
Would Jamie come on?
Jamie might come on, or Kim Babcock, another medium I use. Very good.
Okay.
She could come on. So, yeah, you know, and we plan on starting a radio show. You know, I will say this. I purposely do not make any money off of any of this. Any proceeds that would ever come from books, and, you know, you don't really make too much money on books, would go to Jamie's Love and Light Institute Foundation. And but, you know, and I plan to, and I know it costs money, and you know this too, start some sort of radio show where we can ask, where callers can call in and ask Erik questions, personal spiritual guidance. So I'm hoping to start that in, if I find, you know, something that's not too expensive, there's some way to start that in January, so that people so that we can bring Erik to the masses, so to speak, and all his mysteries.
Great. Well, if you need any help or anything, let me know. I'll be glad to help.
I might ask you that. I might call on you for that. Thank you, Betsey. You're just a wonderful host, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're just terrific. I just had a feeling we would just click, and it's been great. Thank you so much for joining the show, and I know the listeners out there have probably just, you know, gained so much more. Go out and buy the book by Dr. Elisa Medhus, and, you know, it's channeled information by Erik, her son. It's beautiful. Both books. The first book that came out, do you suggest that they buy the first book or your last book first?
I think either one. They both are out in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook, and and they're just. I'm really proud of Erik's book. I can't say enough about how many lives that has changed, and, you know, I'm not bragging because I had very little to do with it. So don't fuss at me.
Well, you did. You brought him into this world, and you had a lot to do with it. So, and making it happen is just incredible. So that book is My Life After Death, and the first book is My Son and the Afterlife. So go out and buy those books, read it, and reread it. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to reread everything again because there's so much information in there that's just incredible. So thank you again so much, and let's stay in touch. I'd love to get you back if that's possible. And
yes,
we'll
ma'am. Anytime, any way we can bring this information to the masses, something that you've done for a long time, and I appreciate. I'm game for.
Oh, great. Well, blessings to everybody. Thank you again, and have a great evening. Bye-bye, everybody.
Good night. Bye, everybody.